Hello, my name is Mr. Bates, and today we're looking at a revision activity, and that revision activity is called Picture It. So Picture It is a booster activity, so that means you can incorporate it in all sorts of other revision activities that you do. So what is Picture It? Well, it's looking at a concept, and instead of writing that down, thinking about ways you can represent that concept as a picture or a symbol. There are many reasons why Picture It is a really good activity to start practicing. The first one is it gets you out of that passive thinking, and straight away you've got to be actively thinking about how to turn this idea into a picture. So it's going to get you actually thinking, and that's what we want. The other thing is that you're going to start, it forces you to think a bit differently. So you look at things from a different angle, and again, that's going to help you understand and remember the thing that much better. They often say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and pictures do contain a lot of information. So each time you look at a picture, you might see it's something different in that picture. Again, that's going to be useful. If you sit and write your notes down and you keep writing notes down, if you put all of those down on the floor, it's going to be difficult to actually know what each one of those pages is about. Okay, whereas if you do pictures, if you've made pictures, you're going to remember those pictures and instantly recognize what each one is about. Instead of doing your notes normally, if we draw things as pictures, well, that automatically gets us to start thinking about the links between one thing and another. This leads to this goes in this direction. Okay. And when you're thinking of the links between things, it makes more sense to you. Okay. When you're comparing things, it's going to make more sense to you. So it's a really good habit to get into. And lastly, well, I think instead of just writing notes all the time, actually practicing drawing can start to become a really enjoyable activity. If your revision becomes more enjoyable and you want to do it more, well, that's obviously a good thing. So there's lots of reasons why you should practice Picture It. But what I find is that some students don't feel so confident about drawing, so it's worth just practicing a little bit. You can go to Google Quick Draw and it will give you different words, and you can then just quickly practice. And you have to quickly practice because it's going to try and guess that word within about 20 seconds. So the reason why this is really good is because that's exactly what we want for Picture It. We want you just to draw really basic, simple representations of things that make sense to you so that you remember them when you look at them again. Another way of practicing Picture It is go online and go for the random name generator. That will pop up as many words as you want. You can then select some words and practice drawing those words. Again, I'm going to make this as simple as possible to represent the words and the ideas. I'm just going to quickly draw things out so that it makes sense to me. When I look at it again, I can remember what that meant. So we've even got the idea of like swapping there and that sort of thing. So when I look at this again, I'm going to instantly recognize what each part was about. So how are we going to do this for your revision? I went to ChatGPT and asked it to give me a concept in English, an important concept. I selected out the words that I thought were important, and I started to think, well, how can I represent these words as pictures? I first of all drew that it was about writers and speakers speaking to an audience, and then started to think about the different rhetorical devices. A simile I wasn't sure of. It sounded like similar, so I just drew two of the same faces. Metaphor, I knew it was comparing two different things to look at it in a different way. And the alliteration, I had an idea what that was, so I drew my representation of that. And hyperbole, I knew was something to do with exaggerating, so I thought I'd express it like that. Now, afterwards I went back and checked, and yeah, the simile I wasn't particularly happy with the way I'd represented that, because it isn't two of the same things. It's very much like a metaphor, but with slight different emphasis. So that's great. I found a mistake I made. I found something I didn't know, and I corrected that, and hopefully I'll remember that in the future. Now, I went to ChatGPT again, but this time I asked it to give me a maths concept, and this time it gave me Pythagoras theorem. So I picked out the key parts, did the process again, started thinking about how can I represent this. So I knew it was about right angle triangles. So I just pointed to the right angle triangle. And then I tried to represent the square of the hypotenuse being equal to the sum of the square of the other two sides. And then lastly represented it in letters. That was my way of representing things. And I'm going to show you now when I gave some students of mine a knowledge organizer. I asked them to do a revision activity, and one of them turned that knowledge organizer into pictures. So they represented the different ideas there as symbols that made sense to them. So some of those being things like no carbon dioxide, no sulfur dioxide. We've got a difficult concept here. Carbon neutral is where things are burnt, carbon's released, and then when something's grown, it takes in the carbon dioxide. And so we get this balancing act. So that's nicely represented. And again, we've got habitat destruction, large areas being represented in just diagrams. Now this person, if they look at these two things, they're going to remember the bottom one so much better. It's nice and clear to them. They can remember their thought processes, why they drew it like this and that. That's going to really help their memory remember that concept. So it's now your turn to have a go at Picture It. See if you can choose yourself a topic and think about that topic. How can you represent it and in simple diagrams, simple pictures, and just have a go at practicing that. The more you practice it, the easier it becomes. And also, I think you'll find the more you're going to use it in all your other revision activities, rather than writing out words all the time. Quite nice just to write a quick picture or a quick symbol to represent complicated ideas. Good luck with doing your Picture It activity today, and thank you for listening.